Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm opening the regular meeting of the Board of Directors for October 30th. And Deborah, could you do a roll call, please?
Certainly. Hamaji.
Here.
Bentley.
Here.
Hurt.
Here.
Pyram.
Here.
Hildreth.
Here.
Laird.
Here.
Selden.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Yang is excused. Matheson.
Here.
Okay.
Members are entitled to speak during the designated open forum portion of this meeting, whether attending in person or via Zoom. Each speaker is limited to 2 minutes. If speaking on behalf of another member, additional instructions provided on the forum slips must be followed. All speakers must clearly state their full name and Rossmore address before beginning their comments. Please be advised that this meeting is being broadcast and recorded. By attending and participating in this meeting, including during the open forum, each attendee agrees to and releases the Rossmore Walnut Creek from all liability for their voice and/or likeness being recorded and broadcast for any lawful purpose without compensation. Thank you.
Are there any updates to the minutes from our meeting on September 25th?
No.
Thank you, Dwight. Seeing none, we'll say they're approved. And I'd like to invite Cindy Silva up. Cindy is our liaison from the city.
Good morning and happy fall. We're having a beautiful fall day today and just perfect for Halloween tomorrow evening. I was going to wear my witch's hat, but then I really don't want to be known as a witch. I'll start by saying that following a rigorous nationwide search, the city has selected Captain Ryan Hibbs to be the next police chief for the city of Walnut Creek. Captain Hibbs has been a member of our police department for 16 years. He started as an officer. He has, for the last few years, been serving as one of our captains. He will take over on December 31st, just in time for the new year. And that is when our current chief, Jamie Knox, will be retiring. And I know that Captain Hibbs, soon to be Chief Hibbs, will be pursuing or continuing to pursue our community policing focus and also using a more data-driven approach to tackling crime. So it's great news for us, and I'm glad we're going to be able to take advantage of his skills and talents. On behalf of the Community Service Day Committee, I want to thank everyone in Rossmore and across Walnut Creek for their efforts on Saturday, September 27th, with about 100 volunteers, including some members of the Rossmore community helping in front of the Rossmore Safeway. We collected a record-breaking 12,500 pounds of food and nearly $5,000 in cash donations, which translates to 21,000 meals. And cash donations are still rolling in. Plans are now underway for our spring Community Service Day. We're moving from the fall to the spring. It'll be Saturday, April 18th, and you'll hear more in the coming months. With this beautiful fall weather, I want to invite all of you to come out on Saturday, November 15th for the last of the season 1-hour walking tours of public art. The November 15th Public Art Walking Tour will feature public art on Main Street and in the downtown library. And if you've never seen this piece of art, go out and participate in the tour. It's in the library. I'm glad to see Susan Hildreth is laughing, having been a former state librarian here in California. So come on out. You meet at the Bedford Gallery at 10 a.m. and you should be done by 11, just in time to have lunch downtown. We were excited to recently learn that the California Department of Housing and Community Development has awarded the city a $1 million pro-housing incentive grant. This $1 million will help us expand our affordable housing options for the community, as well as give us some extra funds to be able to better support those in our community who are at risk of becoming homeless. I am happy to report that the Heather Farm Field Turf Project is nearing completion, and we should be celebrating the opening of the 2 all-weather ball fields at Heather Farm by Thanksgiving. I'm going to say that hesitatingly, because if we have a deluge of rain in the next 2 weeks, it could be slightly delayed. Unfortunately, bad news for the turf at the Boundary Oak Golf Course, like the Rossmore golf courses. We have been having a heavy influx of wild pigs and boars in the course. It's the putting greens. It's not the sand traps, but it's the putting greens and the fairways. It's the consequence of having good greens and a proliferation of grubs. So we're having to take proactive measures to tackle that problem. Bids are due this afternoon at 2 p.m. from prospective construction companies for the Heather Farm Aquatic Center and Community Center project. It is going to be the largest project in a generation for the community. The last time we had a project of this scope was when we built and opened the Walnut Creek Downtown Library in 2010, and prior to that it was the opening in 1990 of the Lesher Center for the Arts. We are holding our breath that that tariffs and other rising costs are not going to affect this project. We'll keep our fingers crossed. And lastly, I will mention that in the spirit of Halloween and thrilling dramas, next Wednesday evening, November 5th, at the Lesher Center will be the opening night of Center Rep's latest production, which is The Woman in Black, which has been described as a chilling thriller. It is written by Susan Hill. It was originally produced in London, and over its run in the West End of London, it is the second longest running play in London history, with 7 million theatergoers. We will not have enough time between November 5th and November 23rd to have 7 million theatergoers, but you're going to want to get your tickets, and you can get them online at lesherartscenter.org. And I will say again, happy Halloween. Take care on those dark nights, because children in this neighborhood, not in Rossmore, but on the streets surrounding Rossmore, don't have a lot of sidewalks, and they will be out in force on a Friday night because they don't have to go to school on Saturday. Oh, aren't the teachers thrilled? And I'll be happy to answer questions.
Any questions for Cindy? I just wondered, what was the status of the electric bicycle project that you had talked about?
We got a report on it a week ago at our council meeting. We're cautiously optimistic that the education efforts that we're making, focused on youth and schools and parents, will help to create greater awareness of the risks and to keep our youth safe on the streets, because they are very fun, and they're a very good way of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, because you can get out of your car and you can use an electric bicycle to get yourself to and from the grocery store. But it's also, youth don't know how fast is too fast, really, sometimes. But we had a letter from a member of the community that really commended us for what we're doing. He is a parent, and he and his wife he described it as they're battling the commercial efforts to push these in for the holiday season and gift giving to the youth. So we're really focused on the youth and schools, etc. And every one peddler at a time is going to be the mantra.
Any other questions for Cindy? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you next month.
We'll see you December 4th.
Okay, next we're going to do a little shakeup of the agenda. We're going to start with Jeff and his general manager's report, and then that's going to be followed by item 11B, which is recognition of the woodshop. So Jeff, if you could give us your report.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So this month, I wanted to just take a moment and recognize that there are incredible amount of good things that are going on in Rossmore on a monthly basis. And many of those things are only successful due to the efforts by a number of clubs and residents that put a lot of energy into these events. This last month was Pedestrian Safety Month, and due to the efforts of Lynn Carruthers and residents for safer neighbors for safer streets, we had a number of really good events, great turnout by the community. The event, Coffee with a Whole Lot of Cops, was a packed house. But I really also want to take a minute to thank the Walnut Creek Police Department for their efforts and turnout. And those that are driving around Rossmore, keep an eye out, because they have definitely been here in force lately on the streets. So I want to thank them for that. The other activity that took place recently was the Diversity Festival. This is now an annual event, and it is really a cornerstone event for Rossmore. It highlights the many different cultures and clubs and events that take place. There is a steering committee of Mary Taylor, Joseph Isley, Liliana Rosing, Vina Kashal, Judith Schumacher Jennings, and Tina Carrion, who worked with both our Recreation Department and Z De Leon, and really did an outstanding job. Despite some weather, they still had a fantastic turnout, and I want to thank them for all those efforts. And in a minute, Ann Matola is going to come up and do a little recognition, but if you have not been to the Dollar Clubhouse recently and to the back patio, there was significant effort to redo all of the trellis work there, and it looks fantastic. And we want to thank the members of the Rossmore Wood Shop that assisted in redoing some of those details. So we'll take care of that in a minute. And then we are also going through a huge effort right now in doing preparation work for our new website. And we had videographers and photographers out over the last week doing a lot of work capturing video and pictures and images of Rossmore residents doing their thing and having a good time and using the amenities. So there's a lot of folks that were involved in that, but especially want to thank Linda Register. She's a member of the marketing task force. She helped highlight a number of the homes for a series of the videos that we will be highlighting on the website. So there's just a lot of good things, but they are really due to the efforts of a lot of folks. So we thank them for their continued effort within the community. So now I'd like to have Ann step up, and we're going to actually recognize a few of the folks that helped us with the dollar improvements.
And I want to just give a little backstory, because after yesterday's new residents fair, there may be new residents that don't know about the Dollar Clubhouse. But if you were to go to the outside of the clubhouse, there are arbors. And on the arcs of the arbors are all of this intricate kind of scroll work. And so the facilities team wanted to put some time into the Dollar House. They replaced the solarium doors, and they were doing some, power washing of the building and the arbors. And there's certain work that they could repair, but then they noticed all this scroll work, and it's rather intricate. And the team was like, we don't know how we would fabricate this, but John Wraith, who's our supervisor and who has been here longer than any of us, said, hey, I think back in the day, the woodshop supervisors did that. So I reached out to Tim Andrew, who's the president of the woodshop supervisors, and he was joined by Tim Beckett, and we met to talk about what the scope was. And they were like, yeah, we'd love to take it on. And so it's not just the scroll work, there's a ton of bells that they had to, recreate as well. But the club together put in over 100 hours, I think it was 102 hours of volunteer effort in order to do this, and there were 7 different members. But we do want to recognize the club as a whole, but also Pierre Boyer, who's here, who contributed, I think it's 60 hours. So of the 100 hours, he contributed 60 hours, and he coordinated the effort. And Tim Beckett's with him as well, and he contributed 20 hours. So the other 5 people, they gave about 5 hours each. But it was a tremendous, impactful donation of talent and time. So, yeah. I'm just going to make them be seen for a second so I can give them a certificate. Oh, here's Tim.
I would just like to say that the woodwork looks stunning, and we've put up some tube lighting up there to highlight it, and it's a refreshed look of the patio, and I just want to thank the gentlemen for all their work, and females, who did the work on the project. It's really an enhancement to that back patio. Any other comments on that? Dwight?
If I could just say that Tim Beckett is actually Tom Beckett, and he's my neighbor, and he does a lot of great things in our neighborhood as well. So thanks, Tom.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, moving on, we'll be doing, let's see, where are we? Item 7, Members Forum.
So we actually have the financial report first.
I'm sorry.
Todd, you want to?
We could start with this. So on the screen, you'll see, good morning, board. Good morning, everyone. You will see our budget to actual for RPM. And you'll see we're slowly integrating the name changes into NetSuite. So from a marketing standpoint, we're continuing trying to refine. We'll try to start getting the parent name changed, but we're starting to get at the RPM and the RWC through the actual reporting cycle. Real quick, just on the top level, we are still very much in a good situation on positive variances for both RWC and RPM on the income standpoint. If you look at RPM, you'll see that we are quite over on RPM here on some of the billable revenues on the reserve side, which is at $215,000 positive. As we've spoken in the past, we'll still have some seasonal variances, right? So some of that work that has been done in the nicer weather will, other than maybe rain leaks, will, slow down in the fourth quarter. So we will probably eat into that a little bit because we do budget that revenue currently as a straight line budget. So if you were to look at the bottom line where we're positive RPM, and just so everyone knows, we do have, we have break-even budgets, right? So the positive variances you see here on RPM of 400,000, if you were to scroll all the way to the bottom, Jeff, real quick, and we can go back up and ask questions, but keep going right there. You'll see that we have, tried to budget this is through September. So what you're looking at here is obviously all of our expenses through September and the budget, correlating budget through September, where you can see the budget, we are pretty much break even. We are running a positive variance. As I just mentioned, some of that is seasonal, so we will continue to see some of that erosion to that number as we were going to trend back towards a break-even number. However, we've talked, we're still very favorable on some just expense line items, right? So hopefully we will continue to see some of those savings flow through to the end of the year and end up with absolutely an actual positive variance on our RPM budget. So, and it's kind of if you were to look through it, and some of the utilities or through some of the vehicle expenses, it's kind of some of the variances are just kind of spread out. It's not like one super big piece where the variance is happening. We still continue to have a little bit of savings in labor, which is offset a little bit by overtime on the NetSuite implementation, and also some of the temp help where we've transitioned from temporary help into some hopefully full-time labor and being fully staffed. So we still have that kind of offset where we have some, we budget a full staff, and obviously we have vacancies and turnovers through the year, so we're not always fully staffed, right? And also some of the variances on the other expense categories also vary depending on the employee that's hired and number of dependents, so benefits kind of, vary a little bit. So, but we're still positive on that in terms of, if you look at just net total salaries in terms of temporary help, overtime, and salaries, we're still seeing some savings there. So we're trending really well, I think, in where we're going to be at the end of the year, and hopefully we'll end up with a little bit of surplus, which will allow us to carry that forward into our working capital, and also to, see some variance in some areas where maybe we can, look to, obviously tightening our our budget. But I think, that working capital flowing around. So I suspect we'll still see a positive variance at the end of the year. We're getting close to that. So that's on the Rossmore property management side. If we jump over now, Jeff, to the Rossmore Walnut Creek side. Yeah, RWC. So on the RWC side, you will also see on the revenue, Mark has been passing very well in the golf revenue, and we're across. And on the media side, we're still $100,000 favorable there. So if you were to look at our overall variance on revenue, right, we're about, I think we're $155,000 high on revenue. Go ahead and scroll up a little bit, Jeff, so we can see the revenue. Obviously, you guys are looking at this. This is all the departmental detail. You can also see on salary and wages where we're under budget. Once again, same kind of situation with benefits and tracking based on who we hire and how we're fully staffed. So positive variances there. We will see still, with the weather happening, we had some delays, but we'll still see, as we talked last month, on the facilities maintenance side, we're still going to see some expenditures come through. Obviously, some of those invoices are coming through, and so we're still going to have, a large chunk of expenses hit that category for the remainder of the third quarter. And then, of course, as we get into our year-end close, we'll see accruals and those type of things. On the audit and tax side, we just completed that, so it's about $100,000, $110,000. Those bills just came in, so you'll see those reflected. So on the RWC side, we're positive $700,000 of variance, but we will certainly be cutting that down probably in half here in the next just couple of months with some of the bills that are coming in. So $100,000 in audit, another $200,000 to $300,000 on road resurfacing. So those are all going to come in. So yeah, any questions on the two expense sides for RPM or RWC?
Any questions for Todd? Dwight?
Yeah, Dwight.
So Todd, the operating results look favorable through September, and that's a very good thing. However, we're not seeing the complete financial picture. At last month's board meeting, there were assurances that we would have a current balance sheet for RWC and RPM this month. The board needs to fulfill its fiduciary responsibility and see complete financial statements. When can we see balance sheets?
Yeah, so obviously the buck stops with me on that, Dwight, right? So, last month when we got the audit in, there were material audit adjustments that needed to be entered. And honestly, we just didn't have the bandwidth to go through those in the detail we wanted. We had several immediate family deaths in my department that just, took away from some of the bandwidth. However, a very detailed plan with Amanda, the controller, to release that complete full package, for October for the board meeting on the 4th. I certainly understand the need for the complete set of financials. I want them more than anybody. And then, we went live with SFM. So once again, not an excuse, but just October 1st. And so we're trying to just get a lot done. However, that said, Amanda and I sat down and, and prioritized exactly what needs to happen with some of those, obviously a couple of people that I mentioned on the immediate deaths in their family are back online now. And so there's just, unfortunately, some things that happened in the last 30 days that were out of our control. But it still stops with me, and I obviously, my fiduciary duty is to provide the complete financials as well. So
We look forward to that.
yeah,
Thank you.
me too.
I just had a question to confirm. Did you say that we're no longer using temporary help in RPM for NetSuite work, or do we?
Some outside consultants and professional services, but we are trying to, we still have, for example, a temp help we're using for member records cleanup on our PM side, Leanne, so we're still having some temp help, but some of that temp help that was originally on board has been converted into employees, right? So there is some temp help, but we'll see the total between overtime, temporary help, and salary still come in at budget or be favorable.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Todd? All right, thanks very much. Okay, now we'll move on to member forum. Mary, do we have any speakers?
Yes, we do have speakers. Our first speaker will be Paul Patt. Okay. Hi, I'm Paul Pat. I live at 800 Terra California Drive, number 1, here in Rossmore. Members of the board, I will be speaking on the subject of the Republican Club's request for continued use of the Event Center for its monthly dinner meetings. I'm a club board member and recent past president. We have not yet received Event Center renewal contracts for 2026. Instead, this RWC staff is insisting we take another space, the fireside room, as the RWC staff asserts that it is suitable. For background, the Republican Club of Rossmore is organized as a 501c7 social club. The monthly catered, plated, and served meetings is the most important activity. The dinners represent roughly 90% of our budget. It is something special, a monthly social highlight for us, and is essential to us. Our monthly meetings are an essential vehicle to provide an environment for meeting, discussion, and education. In addition to the plated dinner, our guests enjoy outside lecturers. The dinner guests need to see the speaker and the supporting AV material at the same time. Based on industry recommendations for senior citizen viewing of projected material, the fireside room's elongated shape cannot accommodate more than 64 people seated at dinner tables. The RWC staff suggested they add extra monitors on the side of the room to address visibility concerns. This is an unacceptable solution, would have required our dinner guests to constantly swivel between monitors and the speaker. Also, we have heard numerous complaints of acoustic dead spots and the difficulty to hear in the fireside room. Personally, having worked for Bose Corporation, I'm very familiar with awkward shaped rooms, acoustic dead spots, and the problems with venues that lack professional and appropriate acoustic design. The RWC examples of reassignment of other clubs from the event center are not comparable nor appropriate. The fireside room is not acceptable to us, does not meet the unique needs of our social club. The event center meets our needs and is available, and we do not want to be continuously disenfranchised by the continuous delay in providing us contracts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our second speaker is Tamar Ine.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay. Good morning. My name is Tamar Enoch. I live at 2665 Pine Knoll Drive, number 12. And I'm happy to be here to thank the RWC management, the board, and particularly President Hamaji, especially since I've not been shy to express concerns in the past. As we are all probably aware, many Rossmore residents hire workers to help with house cleaning, caregiving, or handyman jobs. I imagine that many of us do not know the immigration status of the people we employ, and so it is certainly possible that some may be undocumented. Regardless of their status, these folks play essential roles ensuring our comfort and our independence as we age. Last week, when it seemed that ICE was poised to dramatically increase activity in the Bay Area, a group of us became concerned about what could happen to these workers if ICE agents were allowed to enter Rossmore. I wrote to the board on the behalf of the group seeking clarification. I'm very happy to say that I received a prompt and reassuring response from President Hamaji. I will briefly quote from her letter. ICE agents are not permitted entry into Rossmore without either a valid judicial warrant or explicit permission from a resident. Our security contractor, Securitas, has been trained to recognize and verify warrants presented at the gate. Without a valid warrant or resident authorizations, ICE agents will not be granted access to the community. So I'm here to say how much all of us appreciate this very prompt and clear response, and also to say how happy we are to know that our leadership is truly committed to protecting the constitutional rights of everyone who lives or works in Rossmore. Thank you very much.
Our third speaker is David Weiner.
I live at 621 Shadowhawk, Members of the board, let me thank you for allowing me to speak on the subject of the Republican Club's request for continued use of the Event Center for its monthly dinner meetings. The Republican Club is a social, not a political organization, as registered with the IRS. We frequently have nonpartisan speakers. As program director, I am responsible for obtaining speakers for the events and directly involved in maintaining the quality of the events. Since its construction, the club has used the Event Center without incident, although Ann Matola's original email erroneously implied our usage was more recent. The administration's refusal to allow our usage is rooted partly in refusal to understand our event, which is in reality two sequential events. First, a cocktail party and registration of 80 people or so in the side room of the event center. Then a 3-course plated dinner with videos and a speaker in the main dining room. For the main event in October, we had 153 individuals seated for dinner, and an additional 40 were seated to hear the speaker without participating in the dinner. For 2026, an election year, we expect larger crowds. Clearly, the fireside anteroom cannot fit 80 individuals, and the main fireside room, which is 3 times longer than wide, has poor audio and no possibility of allowing 190 individuals to see the projected visuals. A reference study, which we supplied to the administration, recommended 30 square feet per individual for dining for seniors who have any mobility issues, and the fireside room at approximately 3,100 square feet is far below that. We have been surprised at the degree of secrecy the administration has maintained in our negotiations. Twice I have asked to know how often the event center was used in August, but the reply from Mr. Matheson was, quote, "The decision and effort to right-size room assignments with planned usage is not associated with August actuals or current reservations for 2026. It is about the
That is time.
best practice in scheduling and utilizing RWC resource." For the most part, I've felt that this refusal by the administration is due to a misunderstanding of our event and a stubborn bureaucracy. However, there are some in our club that strongly feel it represents politically motivated discrimination against the Republican Club, especially when other clubs, such as the Men's Golf Club, continue to be able to use the event center for events with less than 150 members.
I'm going to have to interrupt. Thank you.
Our fourth speaker is Chris Bratton.
Hi, my name is Chris Bratton. I live at 4329 Terra Granada Drive, number 3A. I'm the president of the Republican Club of Rossmore, and I've previously communicated with you about the difficulty our club's been having in obtaining the event center for our dinners. And we've done that for 14 years, and it's only on Tuesday evenings, so it's a not high-end use. But we were offered 4 months in the event center because our event was larger than groups staff needed to put in the fireside room. Yet the other 8 months, they said we were too small to be in the event center. I'm still waiting, and I anticipate a reply to my email that I sent to you and the Rossmore staff this week, and with new information for you. I hope you read it. The last 2 months, we've had our attendance grow to 175 and 195 for our events. The primary reason the staff has given for not granting us the event center is lower attendance numbers than other clubs. We are a growing social club with high caliber educational speakers that are drawing more people, and this will only increase in an election year. So we don't want to be placed in an inappropriate space like the fireside room, which we do not fit in. We need space for 200 people sitting. That means 20 tables and 40 extra chairs for the speaker-only attendees, as well as a separate space for 100 people to mingle during our social hour. And like we said, our club is about education and socializing and being together. So these are important aspects of our activity. And I'm really happy with our growth, and I hope you can encourage the staff to accommodate us comfortably in the event center. On a second note, I saw on the agenda that you're talking about funding, waiving fees for RAD.
That is time.
And I just would like you to question that until you can assure that all residents' diversity is acceptable to this organization, because the Republican Club was denied acceptance to
I'm
the
going to have to
diversity
interrupt if you
fair
could finish up. Thank you.
because we were not a culture, but we are.
Our fifth speaker is Joe Eilish.
Hello, I'm Joe Easley. I live at 1550 Stanley Lee Dollar Drive, Unit 2B. I want to join in thanking the Board President Hamaji for clarifying that someone from ICE will not be admitted to Rossmore without a valid judicial warrant or explicit permission from a resident who has listed the individual agent as an invited guest. Also want to thank the entire Rossmore Walnut Creek Board and its management staff for having this policy in place. Since Rossmore is private property, it is appropriate to not allow visitors without the permission of a resident or law enforcement officers without a court warrant. This is protection for residents, quote, to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizure, consistent with the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. The amendment further stipulates no warrants shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. So the policy is constitutional and legitimate recognition of our rights as residents. It's also a humane policy as it relates to persons who visit or work in Rossmore, whether they work for Rossmore or residents. Many of us were concerned about the protection of such persons and joined in support of the letter that Tamar sent. Furthermore, it is reassuring to know that Securitas and presumably all its personnel have been trained to recognize and verify warrants presented at the gate. Many residents have been concerned about this, and we're very much relieved to know that this policy is in place, so we thank you all.
Our sixth and final speaker is Joe Easley. Okay, let me. Sorry, I got him out of order here. It would be Jock East. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing the name. Jock.
No, that was me. That was Joe Easley.
Okay.
And I signed up, and you couldn't read my writing. I'm sorry.
Not a problem.
Tamar signed up.
Thank you.
Okay.
And that concludes the member forum then.
Are there any online speakers?
There are no Zoom speakers.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. And the speakers who ran out of time, you are always welcome to write us at the board and continue your comments. Okay, we're going to move on to the resident member committee reports. And Adrian, could you start us off with the audit report?
Okay.
And I'll just add, Adrian's stepping in. The chair of the audit committee, Septon Boyer, couldn't be with us today.
Right. So the audit committee met earlier this month. We reviewed the external auditor engagement letters for next year's audits. We reviewed management's proposed timing of an internal control review. That was particularly about, we've been talking about an internal controls audit of our accounting and other systems for some years now, wanting to do that. Because of the switch to NetSuite, it's been difficult to do or inappropriate to do it in the last couple of years. The audit committee has been very persistent in its desire to have this done. So we requested that management show us a plan for actually getting to the point where in 2027 we would actually do this. Okay, 2026 it's going to be still a transition year for NetSuite. So management showed us a plan for that. We also reviewed the enterprise risk management plan, which is a plan that's put together by by management, where we examine all of the various different potential risks to Rossmore as a whole, to our operation, and we review that on an annual basis. The audit committee, the finance committee, planning committee, and the board, I think, all of us review it. And finally, we reviewed the 401k audit for the period of 2024. We provide a 401k plan for our employees. We're required to do an audit on that on an annual basis to make sure that we're doing it correctly. As a result of that, should I just go through the recommendations?
I didn't know if Todd wanted to speak to the items in front of us. And then we could ask questions if we have any.
Yeah, happy to speak to it. So let's start with the engagement letters. Every year we have historically had 4 external separate audits on the RWC side. One is for the actual pension. One is for the, well, let's say 3 audits in tax services. We also have in the past, in 24, was the pension audit, or our defined benefit plan, and then we have the actual audit for RWC and RPM. So going forward, in 2025, the pension plan was officially closed in 24. So that defined benefit plan audit is no longer a requirement, and obviously that $20,000 is no longer going to be needed to spend. The rest of the other services you'll see in the engagement letters, we had a 3-year fee schedule with CBiz, and we obviously recommended in the audit committee and agreed that you staying with them because of the turnover in NetSuite and the familiar the relationship they have with us, that it would be very beneficial to stay with them for 1 more year, and then either go out and can get competitive bids from other firms, including them if they want to rebid. But I think for 2025, given all the transitions, it makes sense to stay with them. So if you look at the engagement letter you have in front of you, the actual audit for RWC and RPM went from $77,000, which is the last part of our 3-year engagements, to $85,000. So an $8,000 increase in 25 for that. Tax services stayed flat at $7,500 in the engagement letter for the tax services. And then the 401k on it went up $1,000 from $16,000 to $17,000. So $100,500 to $109,500 is what you see in front of you from an increase on these engagement letters. And like I said, I think that our relationship with CBiz has been very strong. And I think this is a great, I thought I'm happy to see the amounts on this letter, these engagement letters, especially being flat on tax and very slight on the pension. Just for everyone to know here on the pension audit, the timing on the pension audit is always in the fall, and that is obviously going through the plan in detail. And so when we can jump over to the actual pension audit, I can ask some questions on that because there were a couple changes we made in the plan for this year. So that's the engagement letter. So obviously, the audit committee and myself recommend that we move forward with CBiz again for the 2025 audit.
Okay, any questions for Todd? Dwight?
In the audit report, it mentioned that the fiscal year 24 audit adjustments are being recorded for a clean trial balance in fiscal year 26. Was that a typo? We'll have clean balances for 25, right?
Yes, that is correct. That is a typo, and I'm going to have McCare review that. I saw that as well. And I don't believe it was in the draft letter.
Okay.
So.
The other question I have is that it seems like the audit reports were delayed this year due to CBiz problems. At least that's what I've been led to believe.
Well, yes, to a degree. I think that, so it was a kind of a compounding of errors, Dwight. They were delayed. Bob, who was our senior on the count, left for last year. So we did have some new associates that were put onto our business this year under McCare. And then they had a new, her review or Bob's replacement was new. So there was some delays in the review process with CBiz that did preach some of the delays on where we are right now. and the regular audit being delayed obviously kind of took some of the resources away from the 401k, which is obviously normally in this time frame. We were a month ahead last year on both the pension plan and on the defined benefit plan. So there was a slight delay, but we're still a little bit in the zone on the pension. The pension's fairly normal timing.
So in your opinion, the CBIZ issues have gone away and it will be timely and smooth next year?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, they will be. And I think the other reason is, obviously the people that are new to the account, there's not going to be a change to those individuals on our account next year. And the knowledge that McCare brings to the table outweighs some of the new staffing issues from a strategic standpoint, 100%.
Any other questions for Todd? Or do we have a motion on any of these?
Okay. I would like to move that the board approve the external auditor engagement letters for financial audit for.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Do we need to vote on each one separately? Because they are distinctly different.
You could do all three together.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So I move that that the board approve the external auditor engagement letters, including a financial audit of $85,000 and the 401k at $15,500, and the tax service, which is, I don't have an exact number, $7,500.
Okay.
I'll second.
Mary seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please, Deborah.
Certainly. Hamaji?
Yes?
Bentley?
Yes.
Hurt?
Yes.
Byram?
Yes.
Hildreth?
Yes.
Lair?
Yes.
Selden?
Yes.
And Walker?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Todd.
Yep.
I have a question before.
Yeah, I have a question too. Go ahead, White.
We have one other thing that we have to accept, I think, which is the 401k audit report.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I'd like to move that the board approve the 401k audit report for the period ending December 31, 2024.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, Mary seconds. Any questions? All right, okay, roll call, please.
Certainly. Hamaji?
Yes?
Bentley?
Yes.
Hurt?
Yes.
Byram?
Yes.
Hildreth?
Yes.
Lair?
Yes.
Selden?
Yes.
And Walker?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
So we had questions could I go forward? So, excuse me, an item on the agenda that we didn't discuss too much was reviewing the timeline for the internal control audit. And I'm very pleased to see this timeline. The audit committee has been working on this internal control audit for a number of years, and I'm the former secretary of the audit committee. I just want to note for the record that the work plan as shown to us starts in October 26th, and the focus of the audit work is going to be in the spring of 27, which I completely understand. My biggest concern here, and I've been assured by Todd and Jeff, that we will have solid estimates in the 27 budget for the cost of the audit. So I just want to make sure and state publicly that I want to make sure we have firm and verified estimates for the internal audit cost, because we won't be going out for the RFP until later, after our budget for 27 has been reviewed by the board.
You want to talk to that?
We will have the best estimates we can produce without actually having a formal bid, but we should be able to get within good budgetary numbers.
Okay, thank you. Dwight?
So earlier, I think it was this year, I get confused what year we're in, but we updated the audit committee charter to include updated status on mutual audits. And I was informed the other day that mutual audits has still not been completed for 2024, and I'd like to ask that the audit committee add that to their next meeting agenda to make sure that that issue is being addressed.
Okay.
We'll have that.
Okay, Moving on, we will have Dan Ring, the Chair of the Finance Committee, give us a report on finance.
Sorry, I caught a cold yesterday in the new member fair. So the Finance Committee had our meeting on Tuesday, and as previously stated, the September income statements of RWC and RPM were reviewed at a high level. Both are showing favorable variances to budgets, which should decline over the remaining years. The committee, along with Dwight, are still anxiously waiting for balance sheets and projections for the remainder of the year. We also discussed the MTF, which is running a few units behind last year's, but a few dollars ahead of last year's pace because of the $500 increase, which was effective January 1st. Then a motion was made and seconded that the Finance Committee acknowledges that Rossmore Walnut Creek has the cash available to spend $625,000 to be paid from the capital fund for improvements to the restaurant at Creekside. The motion passed. Thank you.
Any questions for Dan? Okay, thanks, Dan.
Thanks.
Ann Matola, did you want to give us an overview of the next item?
Yes, so we have as an item, we're asking the board to consider authorizing an amount not to exceed $625,000 for tenant improvements at the Creekside restaurant space. We're asking for this consideration as we are preparing to negotiate a lease agreement with the new operator.
Any questions for Ann? Okay, do we have a motion? Ted?
I'd like to make the motion that RWC Board to authorize the amount not to exceed $625,000 for tenant improvements at the Walnut Creek Restaurant to be paid from the capital fund.
Is there a second? Adrian seconds. Any further discussion? All right. Roll call, please, Deborah.
Certainly. Hamaji?
Yes?
Bentley?
Yes.
Thank you. Hurt?
Yes.
Byram?
Yes.
Hildreth?
Yes.
Blair?
Yes.
Selden?
Yes.
And Walker?
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Thank you, Ann. Moving on to the Golf Advisory Committee, Burke Ferrari, if you could give us your report.
Good morning. Okay, to start with, membership in the four golf clubs stood at 769 in October. I don't anticipate much change between now and the end of the year. That's only 29 members less than the year before at the same time, so pretty minor. I would like to make some quick comments regarding golfers and the pickleball project. The pickleball project kicked off last week with the start of the repositioning of the water main to run around instead of underneath the new building. This involved the erection of fencing that we're all aware of around the entire work area. It's included an area on the right side of the 18th fairway, just short of the 18th green, and the creation of a temporary green approximately 150 yards in front of the current green. The current 18th green will be closed as soon as work starts inside the fenced area, and the 18th fairway will end then at the temporary green. This is a safety measure to keep golfers out of the work area and also to protect workers from any stray golf balls that may come in. Golfers understand the necessity of the temporary green, and this is a temporary change. It's a minor inconvenience, and golfers will adapt. So, any questions?
Any questions for Burke? Okay, thanks very much, Burke.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to the board committee reports. Dwight, do you want to give us an update on Planning Committee?
Sure, just a brief update. We received updates from Ann Matola on capital projects. Also want to thank Ted Bentley and Adrian Byram for an enhanced prioritization matrix that'll be used in the upcoming capital budget process. Speaking of capital budgets, a preliminary capital budget will be presented soon. There will be 2 readings of that capital budget in January and February, aiming for board approval at the end of February.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Dwight? All right, moving on to the Policy Committee. Jeff, we're just going to jump right in with your report here.
Okay, so we have the first reading on a few policies that the committee took a couple of meetings to review and comment on. The first one we have up here is Policy 100. This is the policy that deals with kind of enforcement notification. It's to establish a policy procedure or rule for violations of a policy procedure or rule. So what we wanted to do was make sure that we were consistent across all of our various rules that we have for use of our amenities, and that if there are violations of any of the rules or policies pertaining to an amenity, that they were consistent and we had a consistent procedure. So this Policy 100 outlines what that procedure would be. This will be referred to now on all of our future and current policies and procedures to update those. It talks about the steps that would be involved in evaluating any violations, including letters to the member or violation notice, and then followed by a hearing if that is appropriate. The next one, so Policy 101.1 is the actual hearing procedure. So when we do have a hearing, it talks about notice for 10 days prior to the hearing. It talks about what would take place at the hearing and the follow-up to that. This is an existing policy. Our attorney has reviewed and made some updates. We tried to make it consistent with Davis Sterling and what is done within the mutual, so there is just some familiarity and consistency with executing and conducting that hearing. And then the final policy is the harassment policy. And this is consistent with federal state law as well as consistent with our policies. It is for the protection of residents, guests, staff, and vendors. It follows the actual law. There is a part in here that has to do with housing. The committee discussed that quite a bit because RWC actually does not have housing. However, according to our legal counsel, because we provide services to housing, to residents in housing, that we should actually be including that within the policy. Otherwise, it is intended to be strictly in compliance with both federal and state law. So those are those 3 policies. Any questions on those?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Since 100 kind of plays into 101.1, should policy 101.1 be referenced somehow in policy 100, because you talk about the process of the hearing? It's almost like you want to guide the reader to the hearing policy versus having them just look at 100. I would say, like on item number 3, a reference to see policy 101.1, something like that.
So we could put consistent with policy 101.
Right, something like that.
Or in compliance with. So that could be added under item 3.
Okay. Any other questions? Dwight?
So the harassment policy 104.5, on page 9B 1.5, it talks about behaviors, and it says unreasonable, hostile, and excessive telephone calls to a resident, staff, or vendor. And I think we're beyond the world of just telephone calls these days, and we're into social media and emails, and I'm wondering if those shouldn't be added as items of harassment.
There was a section added to do with social media. That came up as a discussion point within the committee. So there was a section added, I'm looking forward to here, related specifically to use of social media.
Okay.
And what about email?
I don't believe email was specifically called out, but that could be added as well. Email or text, yeah.
Or we could add it in such a way that it anticipated new technologies of the same sort of thing. It'd be better to do it that way.
Something general like that might be good because you got Insta, you got all kinds of stuff now, Yeah. Social media.
So what we could do is make those, it could either go back to policy to review that amendment, or we can make that and bring it back here for your further consideration.
Okay. I also have a question about the harassment policy 104.5. At the bottom of the first page says Rossmore residents and their guests may not harass other residents or guests, staff, or vendors. But does that policy apply if a vendor is harassing a resident or staff is harassing a resident? What happens in that situation?
The entire policy is meant kind of, as it states at the top, to preclude harassment among residents, guests, staff, or vendors. So maybe we can reword that at the bottom to indicate really any form of harassment between any of those categories.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when it says that harassment should be reported to blah, 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 senior staff, the board, it sounds like whoever gets a complaint should be sending it to the general manager. Is that correct? That you're the one who's going to make this decision about what to do next?
Absolutely. So we want to have avenues for people to report things that they observe, but ultimately it would filter to the general manager.
Okay, one more comment on harassment in the back. The term members is used quite often, but the person harassing may not be a member. So can we change members to person or persons?
So we can...
It's in that last, second and last paragraph, second to last.
Yeah, so it says persons subject to harassment as defined herein.
Yeah.
So I think because there's a little bit different process as according to this policy, if it was a staff member, they would fall under our employee discipline. If it was a vendor, we would have different recourse. However, if it's a member, which would be subject to other policy procedures such as outlined in 100. So I think we're trying to specifically state member within this one.
But that does exclude then people who are
Adrian,
residents.
could you speak closer to the mic,
I'm sorry.
please?
That would exclude people who are residents but not members.
That's true. So it could be residents instead of members there.
Okay. One more question on that one.
Could I suggest this go back to the policy committee?
I wasn't there. I apologize. I'm a board member. The last sentence about referring to law enforcement, is that done by the member or RWC, the GM? Who has that responsibility?
So the person that is being harassed, we can certainly advise or support, but they would be the ones filing an actual complaint.
Okay, I'd like to see that sentence reworded to imply that.
Just a quick comment that I do think it would be helpful if this went back to policy, even though I'm on policy, and I don't mean to say anything about version control, and I apologize for not picking this up earlier, but there is a paragraph that directly applies to social media that was included by our attorney that didn't get in the version we have in the packet. So I'm looking at this, we don't have to go into it in detail, but the paragraph under the harassment may arise from specifically applies to social media, and we asked them to include that, and that version didn't happen to get into the packet, so we probably should go back and make sure we have version control.
I apologize for that. I was quickly trying to find that paragraph as we were talking about it or just a minute ago. So
and I couldn't see. That's why. Where is that paragraph? And it's not there.
make sure we get the correct version published for sure.
Okay.
I thought I was losing it.
Okay.
So we will bring 104.5 back. The others are for first reading, and I think what you had provided are fairly minor, unless you would like those to go back as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, this is the first reading, so there's no vote on that. If you could then give us an overview of, well, I guess we covered 100.
Yeah, we pretty much covered 100, but what this is you'll read in here a statement that says violations of policy, procedure, or rules will be reviewed and acted upon consistent with policy 100, which may be found on the myrossmore.com website or upon request at the administrative offices at Gateway Clubhouse. This is a statement that would be included pretty much in every policy that we have that has to do with rules for use of those. So that's all this was. It wasn't really policy 100 because we reviewed that earlier.
So this applies to all the rules listed on rossmore.com.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
Okay. I'm sorry, that also is a first reading. So can we move on to the task force overview?
So before you is a recommendation from policy to adopt a charter for a new community services KPI task force. One of your board goals this year is to evaluate and study various ways that we want to look at KPIs and key performance, lost my train of thought there. The initiative would evaluate our resident services portion of our services. So the fitness center, the aquatics, the use of rooms, all of those things. And we want to look at really what is the goal of the board, the finance committee, the community in collecting data, and what do we want to use that data for? How will we collect the data? How will we report it on a quarterly basis or annual basis? And how that will play into decision making in the future. All of those topics will be discussed with the task force. Within the charter, it talks about the makeup of the committee, and it has recommendations for the makeup, the candidates, and we'll actually begin meeting here next week, and they will meet on a monthly basis. So, any questions on the charter there?
Any questions on that? I want to thank all the applicants that came forward. We had some interest, which was nice. And I always welcome people to apply to anything having to do with RWC governance. So that was appreciated. No questions? Dwight.
In addition, I want to say that the Haas School of Business is providing 2 MBA students, one a 3-year student, another a first-year student, Joyce Dallasay and Ife Ojo. And they were here for a tour of the facilities, and they are going to be able to make great contributions to this task force. So we're very happy about that. So I'd like to make a motion.
Sure.
I move that the board approve the formation of the Community Services KPI Task Force and adopt the charter as presented in the agenda packet.
I second.
Okay, Ted seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please, Deborah.
Certainly. Hamaji?
Yes?
Bentley?
Yes.
Hurt?
Yes.
Byram?
Yes.
Hildreth?
Yes.
Lair?
Yes.
Selden?
Yes.
And Walker?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
And I would like to designate Susan Hildreth as the chair of the task force. Thank you very much for coming forward.
Glad to accept the challenge.
Yeah, it'll be good. Okay. Moving on to unfinished business, Jeff, could you give us an overview of 102.3?
Certainly. So during the budget process this year, the board reviewed a recommendation to move from the operating fund to the capital fund the annual RWC facility and property maintenance budget. This is an amount typically around $750,000 for the completion of a number of projects. Within your packet there is, and what's on the screen, the list of typical, this hasn't been approved for next year, but the list of typical projects. They include things like the slurry seal, concrete repair, utility maintenance, equipment replacement. These are all items that are not within the trust property maintenance budget. We do have a budget that covers, all of the routine maintenance. These are more capital expenses. So the slurry seal, for example, is $470,000. When we do equipment repair, this is not just a repair of a broken piece of equipment, but something that would qualify as capital. For example, a new water heater that may be $10,000 or so forth. Furniture replacement is not just replacement of a chair or a couch. It would be a collection of chairs or equipment that would collectively be over $5,000. Grout maintenance, for example, would be taking on the maintenance of a full locker room that typically would cost close to $15,000. It would extend the life of that tile and grout. There is some open space maintenance for the protection that could be involved. Tree removal that we weren't anticipating that may end up, one of those tree removals could cost upwards of $20,000+. And there is some funding in there for ongoing trail maintenance. These are the typical expenses that we see on an annual basis. And then if you look at the policy 102.3, it has to do with the allocation of revenue and expenses between the operating fund and the trust estate, or the RWC trust fund, capital fund, excuse me. So we went through and hopefully cleaned up the RWC and capital and operating, use those terms. But we tried to make some edits that defined the allocation, that really clarified that the movement of the RWC facility and property maintenance account can be funded through the capital fund. I'm happy to answer any specific questions, but you see the red line version as well in your packet.
Any questions? Okay, Carol.
This is just something minor, but in the revenues, the capital revenues on the policy, it talks about medical center rent. Since we don't rent that facility, or even if we want to put that as a possible thing, should we use the address instead of, say, medical center? The address of the property?
Where exactly are you?
Oh, and under revenue, let me see.
One RWC Capital Fund.
Yeah, on the RWC Capital Fund talks about number one, RWC Capital Fund, membership transfers, fees, earnings on trust assets held for investment, including interest and medical center rent. It's on the first page.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Second bullet.
So we can simply eliminate that if you'd like. We do have a parking lot
Right.
lease currently at what's been formerly called the medical center.
I just think we keep referring to it as the medical center, and it's not the medical center.
If you'd like, we could replace that with the actual address.
Yeah.
Or we could just eliminate that altogether.
Okay. This is a second reading, so we'll need a motion. If there is. Mary?
I move that the board accept the amendments to policy 102.3, the allocation of revenue and expenses as recommended by the policy committee, to basically move the annual RWC facility and property maintenance budget from the operating fund to the capital fund.
Is there a second? Okay, Janet seconds. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Certainly Hamaji,
Yes?
Bentley,
Yes.
Hurt,
Yes.
Byram,
Yes.
Hildreth,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Selden,
Yes.
and Walker.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Mark Heptig, are you available to discuss your tournament calendar?
Good morning. So yes, I'm presenting to you in the annual form our looking for approval for the really three prongs to the schedule for next year. The first prong is the Rossmore Golf Club's tournament schedule, which I'll go over in just a moment, which is reduced and waived fees in that. And then two other parts, which is number two, the 14 outside events that we're looking to do on Mondays. Now, again, that's not a reduced or waived fee. That's actually, we're making money on those, but I think we've, over the years, put it on this schedule to just approve it, those 14 Monday events. They bring in about actually $35,000 a year. And then the third prong is the Acalanes and Bentley high school teams having the ability to play here. We've done that for years and years. Bentley comes out once a week during the spring, and Acalanes has both a boys team in the spring and a girls team in the fall that play on Wednesdays and Friday afternoons, and we've allowed them to do that. So there's really three things we're doing here. I think the biggest piece, probably of the most interest, is the club events. We have four clubs here: the Happy Hackers, the Women's 9, the Women's 18, and the Men's Club. They do over 200 events during the year on their schedules. That's why we're so busy down there, part of the reason. But along with that, they have a lot of other events where they ask for annually getting some either waived or reduced fees. I want to give your attention to attachment number 2 in the packet there, because that really is an explanation that I've included every year. It kind of goes over each event and gives you more detail as to why that event even occurs. And then going back to attachment 1, you'll see the ones we're asking for actually next year, because it varies. For instance, I can tell you in an updated form for 2026, The men's club in reduced fees is only asking for 6 home-and-home events, whereas this year they did 7. So we're actually reducing that one. Their guest days, they had 2 this year. We're reducing it and just doing 1 next year. We are including a Diablo Valley under the women's 18-hole waive fees because it's their turn to do that this year. That doesn't happen annually. It happens maybe only every 4 or 5 years. So in other words, this schedule moves a little bit, and sometimes events are added or subtracted depending on what we're doing. I do want to add, however, that this last week I found out the Niners are going to do an open day, and that's not on this schedule. I just didn't have that, but that would be an added event, an open day under the waived events for the Niners. Other than that, it is as you see it. I'd be happy to answer any questions on either the high school or the Monday events or what the clubs are looking for, but with this we can go ahead and move on and finalize the schedules with the clubs and make sure that we have a full schedule for next year.
Quick question. If you have the date of the one that's not on the schedule, you can give it to us. We can incorporate that.
So there's actually, I don't have the dates for any of these. The clubs are still putting their schedules together. So we're just looking for the approval, and then I will work it into our club schedule. So no, it'd be just an additional, it would be a Thursday, which is when the women's club plays. Okay. So it's within the bounds of their event, their Thursday events.
All right. Dwight?
So as a member of the marketing task force, I just want to say you look at some of these tournaments, we're bringing outsiders in and you go, oh, why are we doing that? Well, it's the ultimate marketing tool, especially with golfers, to be able to try out the golf course and to see how wonderful it is here. So Mark, I really appreciate that. I do have one request, and I think I make this request every year. If there are waived fees on a charity event, I would hope that it's a charity that benefits Rossmore, such as Rossmore Fund or Rossmore Scholarship Foundation. That would be my only request.
Absolutely understand that. Yes, there are those events that happen. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Mark? All right. I think we need a motion. Carol?
I move that we approve the golf tournament schedule for 2026 as presented.
I'll second that.
Dwight seconds. Any further discussion? All right. Deborah, roll call, please.
Certainly. Hamaji?
Yes?
Bentley?
Yes.
Hirsch?
Yes.
Byram?
Yes.
Hildreth?
Yes.
Laird?
Yes.
Selden?
Yes.
And Walker?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Moving on to a fee waiver request. Ann Matola, if you could give us that overview.
Certainly. So for this item, we're asking the board to consider a request that came through to us and to provide direction on whether a fee waiver may be granted for the Rossmore Advocates for Diversity, or RAD. They're planning a new event, a Diversity Vision Conference 2025, and the requested fee waiver would cover the costs associated with things like room reservations, technical support, like any of the typical room reservation fees. In the report, we're saying it's not to exceed $750. We don't have the exact setup yet. It could be anywhere from $575 to $750. A little background on RAD and some of the events that they do in partnership with us. They were created in 2020 to carry out the vision of the board to create a more diverse and inclusive community. And since that inception, there are 2 events that they've done in partnership with support from Recreation. And that includes the annual Diversity Festival that we just had, and then the annual Diversity Film Festival. And for each of those programs, reservation staffing and AV fees are waived. For the festival in particular, Recreation provides some logistic support and assistance with purchasing event supplies. So this is a new request to support an additional event. It's proposed as a one-day event, and there's some information that Ray James, the board director, who's here with us, she put together so it could be part of the report. And it's really like kind of play upon the theme to appeal to residents who value and celebrate the diverse community that makes Rossmore so unique. So with this request, we're asking whether the fee waiver aligns with existing policies and precedents for clubs and organizations within Rossmore. what the parameters of such a waiver would be, and potential implications for other clubs and organizations that may seek similar waivers.
Any questions for Ann?
So if I can just add before we open to questions. So the questions probably come up, why is this before you today? Because you haven't seen this typically in the past. We wanted to bring this before you because typically when we have a fee waiver for an event, it is actually an event where one of the departments, whether it's public safety or whether it is recreation or whether it is counseling, is actually part of the event, is hosting the event, involved in the planning of the event. It meets the mission of that particular department. So it is really, the reservation falls under, say, public safety for some of those events. This is a new request coming to you that we really don't have a home for. It's not falling under one of our co-sponsored type of things. This would be conducted by RAD independent, and therefore they are requesting that consideration of a fee waiver.
Okay, Dwight, and then Susan.
So the other day, I heard that we have 168 authorized clubs within Rossmore. How many receive fee waivers of this type?
I think there were 4. It's 4 or 5.
And they're only in conjunction with?
It's conjunct, like EPO, excuse me, EPO, Safer Streets, Rossmore Fund.
Okay, but it's
they're
in conjunction with a department.
Yeah, so Rossmore
okay,
Fund
that's
works
correct.
with counseling, EPO, and Safer Streets with public safety.
Susan?
Just a question about the Diversity Festival and the Diversity Fair and possibly the Film Festival. I understood that they were done in partnership with the Interfaith Council Diversity Consciousness Committee. Is that accurate?
I believe that's the parent organization for that.
Okay. So this particular activity has no other partners. It's just a pure RAD-sponsored activity.
That is correct.
That's correct.
And the Diversity Fair and the Diversity Festival do not charge a fee to participate. Is that correct?
Yeah, you don't charge for the fair.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And this activity is charging a fee. Okay.
Carol.
I would suggest, I'm sorry, if there are not other questions, I would suggest that we refer this request to the policy committee because it's, the request itself and the subject matter is meritorious. I just particularly have a concern about establishing a precedent and how that might impact other club requests that come to the board in the future.
Carol?
I have the same problem with this or question about it. They're charging for this event. When you look at their budget for the event, even if we don't help them out with this $750, they're still going to make money on this event. So we start doing this for one club, every club's going to start coming to us with, can we waive this fee or that fee?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
My concern would be, this is very meritorious, as you said, but if we say yes to this, who do we say no to and on what basis? So I want a lot more thought and planning into whether to go ahead with this or to not.
So this event is planned in April? Is that correct?
May of 26.
Okay. So if we did move it to planning, we could have it more defined. I mean, policy. Whatever. We'll just throw it on Dwight. Policy, we could have it well defined by then. Is there a motion to do that? No motion required.
I don't think we need a motion, just give us direction that you'd like to refer this to policy.
Okay. I think it's warranted to send it to policy for further definition of
And we have a
how to
meeting
proceed.
coming up, so hopefully we could discuss it and soon as possible so they can go ahead with their planning.
True. Okay. All right. I think that's it. Thank you, everybody. There will not be a mid-month meeting held in the month of November, and the end-of-month regular meeting of the board, the next one, will be December 4th at 9 o'clock here at Peacock Hall. And right now, we'll adjourn to executive session. Thanks, everyone.